Hello everyone. Before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment saying where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories like this. Now let's begin. I remember the sound first. Not a scream or a gunshot, just the slow crunch of footsteps somewhere behind the trees, matching my pace no matter how I tried to slow down. The piney woods were already dark even though it was barely past sunset, the tall pines blocking what little light was left. My phone had one bar, my truck was a mile away, and the air felt thick like it was pressing against my chest. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Hunters. A lost hiker. Anyone but the truth my gut was whispering to me. I'd grown up hearing stories about these woods in East Texas. People going missing, strange encounters, bodies found months later not far from logging roads. I never believed most of it. This was supposed to be a quick job, checking trail cameras for a landowner I'd done work for before. He said the area was quiet, empty. That word stuck with me now. Empty doesn't feel like this. Empty doesn't feel like someone watching you from just far enough away that you can't see them. Every few steps, I felt eyes on the back of my neck. When I stopped, the footsteps stopped too. When I moved again, they came back. Slow, careful, like whoever it was didn't want me to panic yet. The trees all looked the same, and the path I came in on seemed to fade into nothing. I realized then how easy it would be to disappear here. No cameras, no witnesses, just trees and dirt and silence. I thought about turning around and calling out, asking who was there, but something told me not to. A deep, quiet fear that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't random. It felt planned, like I wasn't supposed to leave these woods the same way I came in. And as the light finally died and the forest went completely still, I understood that whatever was following me knew these woods better than I ever could. I kept walking, pretending I didn't notice anything, because stopping felt like giving in. My breath came out shallow, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told myself to focus on the job, find the cameras, swap the cards, leave. But when I reached the first tree, the camera was already gone. The strap was still there, cut clean like someone had taken their time. That's when the fear stopped being abstract and turned solid in my chest. I checked my phone again. Still one bar. I tried calling the landowner, but it went straight to voicemail. That bothered me more than it should have. He always answered. He was the kind of guy who liked control, liked knowing what was happening on his land. Earlier that day, he'd insisted I go alone, said his usual guy was busy. At the time, it felt normal. Now it felt like a mistake I couldn't undo. As I moved deeper in, I started noticing things that didn't belong. A fresh boot print in soft dirt that wasn't mine. A cigarette but still warm, crushed near a fallen log. I don't smoke. The smell of it clung to the air, mixing with pine and damp earth. Every sign told me someone else was here, close, watching me react. Then I heard a voice. Not shouting, just calm, calling my name like we were old friends. It came from somewhere to my left, then went quiet. I didn't answer. My mouth felt dry. My tongue stuck to the roof like I couldn't form words even if I wanted to. The voice came again, closer this time, saying I didn't need to be scared, that they were just making sure I didn't take anything that didn't belong to me. I thought about the landowner's smile earlier, the way he'd looked at me just a second too long, the way he'd joked about trespassers ending up lost out here. I'd laughed back then. Now it played in my head on repeat. I realized this wasn't about cameras. This was about seeing how far I'd go before I broke. When I reached the second camera spot, it was still there, but turned slightly, aimed down the trail I was on. A red light blinked softly. It wasn't watching deer. It was watching me. My legs felt weak, and I had to lean against a tree to stay upright. The forest felt smaller, tighter, like it was closing in. I understood then that someone knew exactly where I was, and they wanted me to know it too. The voice came again, close enough that I could hear breathing between the words. I turned too fast and almost slipped in the mud. A man stepped out from behind a tree, hands visible, calm like he'd been waiting for this moment. He wore a jacket I recognized. It belonged to the landowner. I'd seen him wear it before. That's when my stomach dropped. This wasn't a stranger. This was part of the plan. Before I could say anything, another shape moved behind me. Then another. 3 of them in total, spaced out just enough that running felt pointless. The man in front smiled and said I was trespassing. Said they'd been having trouble with people stealing equipment, and they needed to set an example. His voice never raised. That scared me more than yelling ever could. I tried to explain, my words tripping over each other, telling them I was hired, that I had messages, proof. One of them laughed and asked why I came alone if I was supposed to be there. I reached for my phone, but the man closest to me took it before I could unlock the screen. He looked at it, then at me, and said there was no service anyway. Like he'd already checked. They didn't rush me. They guided me off the trail, hands firm on my arms, steering me deeper into the trees where the ground dipped and the light never reached. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Every step felt heavier, slower, like my body was giving up before my mind did. We stopped near a shallow pit, half hidden by brush. Old tire tracks circled it. That's when it hit me that this wasn't the first time they'd done this. I thought about all the stories I'd heard growing up, the ones I'd shrugged off as rumors. Standing there, surrounded by people who saw me as a problem to erase, I realized how easy it was for the woods to keep secrets. And as one of them stepped closer and told me to stay calm, I understood that no one was coming to help. I don't remember deciding to run. I just remember my body moving before my mind caught up. Someone grabbed my jacket, it tore, and suddenly I was free, crashing through brush and branches, not caring where I was going as long as it was away. I fell hard, rolled, scraped my hands raw, but I kept getting back up. I heard shouting behind me, then the sound of boots giving chase. At some point, my lungs burned so bad I thought they'd burst. I hid under a fallen tree, face pressed into damp leaves, trying to breathe without making noise. Every crack in the woods sounded like footsteps. When I finally crawled out, the sky was lightning. I'd made it to a service road I barely recognized. A passing truck stopped when they saw me. I don't remember what I said, only that my voice wouldn't stop shaking. The police came later. They walked the area, asked questions, took notes. They said they couldn't find anyone. The landowner didn't answer his phone anymore. His property records had been transferred months earlier to a name I didn't recognize. I lost the job, of course. I lost my sense of safety too. For weeks, I couldn't sleep without the lights on. Loud noises made my heart race. The worst part was knowing how close I came to being just another story people whisper about. No proof, no closure, just the feeling of being hunted and the knowledge that some people don't see you as human at all. I don't go near the Piney Woods anymore. Even driving past them makes my hands tighten on the wheel. People tell me I was lucky, that I should be grateful I got out. But luck doesn't feel like the right word. It feels more like I was allowed to leave. Like someone decided I wasn't worth the trouble that night. I still think about that camera aimed at the trail, the red light blinking like an eye that never closed. I think about how calm they were, how practiced. That kind of control doesn't come from panic. It comes from experience. From knowing the land will protect you, that trees don't talk and dirt doesn't remember. The police never called me back. No arrests. No follow-up. Just silence. Sometimes I wonder how many people walked into those woods thinking it was just another job, another shortcut, another harmless place. I wonder how many never found their way out, and how easily their names faded when there was no proof they'd ever been there at all. What changed me the most wasn't the fear of dying. It was realizing how thin the line is between being safe and being forgotten. How trust can turn into a trap without warning. I listen to my instincts now, even when they don't make sense. Because that night taught me something simple and cruel. Some places aren't dangerous because of what lives there, but because of who's waiting for you to step inside. I remember waking up to the sound of someone knocking on my bedroom wall. Not the door, the wall. Slow, steady thumps, like they were testing how thin it was. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting each knock, trying to tell myself it was just the house settling. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Houses don't knock back when you stop breathing. I was staying in a small rental near the edge of the Texas Piney Woods, the kind of place locals avoid unless they have no choice. My job had me working late nights at a nearby processing plant, and this was the only place available on short notice. The landlord was quiet, older, and lived in the main house about 100 yards away. He'd said the area was safe, just real quiet. That word again. Quiet never feels safe after dark. The woods pressed right up against the back of the property. During the day, they looked harmless, just trees and shadows. At night, they swallowed sound. Even the insects went silent sometimes, like something bigger had passed through. The first few nights, I slept fine. Then things started feeling watched. Not in a dramatic way, just small moments. My truck door unlocked when I knew I'd locked it. Mud on the porch that wasn't there when I left for work. That night, after the knocking stopped, I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages, just a text draft I didn't remember writing. It was unsent, only 3 words long. He's still here. My chest tightened as I stared at it, trying to remember when I'd typed it. I hadn't told anyone where I was staying. And suddenly, the woods outside didn't feel empty at all. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the edge of the bed until morning, listening to every sound the house made. When daylight finally came, the place looked normal again, almost harmless. No marks on the wall. No footprints outside my window. I convinced myself I'd been overtired, maybe sleepwalking. I deleted the text draft and went to work without telling anyone. Things got worse after that. When I came back the next night, the porch light was already on. I clearly remembered turning it off before leaving. Inside, the air felt stale, like the house had been closed up too long, even though I'd left a window cracked. The landlord's truck was parked near his house, engine still warm. He waved when he saw me, smiled like everything was fine. I smiled back, but something about his eyes made my stomach tighten. He watched me longer than he needed to. Over the next few days, small things kept piling up. My boots were moved from where I left them. The bathroom mirror had a faint smear across it, like someone wiped steam away with their hand. Once, I came home to find the back door unlocked. When I asked the landlord if anyone had been by, he said no, then added, "You sure you're locking up, right?" His tone wasn't accusing. It was amused. The knocking came back on the 4th night. Same spot, same slow rhythm. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard breathing on the other side. Not heavy, not rushed, calm, patient. I froze, every muscle tight, until it stopped. When I checked outside with a flashlight, the beam caught fresh footprints leading from the woods straight to the side of the house, then circling back the same way. No rush, no hesitation. At work, I started feeling watched too. My supervisor mentioned the landlord had stopped by asking questions about my schedule. That scared me more than the footprints. I never told him where I worked. That night, my phone buzzed while I was brushing my teeth. A new message. No number. Just text. "Don't worry. He won't hurt you." I stared at it until my hands went numb. I hadn't told anyone I was worried. I hadn't told anyone anything. That's when it finally hit me. This wasn't one person acting strange. This was people talking, watching, sharing information. And I was the only one who didn't know the rules. I decided to leave that night. I didn't pack much. Just my backpack, my keys, and my phone. I kept the lights off, moving slow, trying not to make noise. As I reached for the front door, my phone buzzed again. Too late. The knock came immediately after. Not on the wall this time. On the door. 3 firm knocks, close together. Confident. I stood there frozen, my hand inches from the handle, heart slamming so hard it made my ears ring. Then the landlord's voice came through the door, calm and friendly, asking if everything was okay. Saying he'd noticed my lights were off and got worried. I didn't answer. I stepped back slowly, every instinct screaming at me to stay quiet. The handle turned anyway. I'd locked it, but it still turned, just slightly testing. Then he laughed. Soft. Almost disappointed. From the back of the house, I heard the wall knocking again. Faster now. Closer. Like whoever was out there knew time was running out. My chest tightened as I realized what was happening. The woods weren't the threat. The house wasn't the threat. I was surrounded by people who had decided I belonged to them. Not angry. Just flat. He said I should open the door, that leaving in the dark wouldn't be smart. He said people got hurt out here when they didn't listen. The knocking behind me stopped. Silence filled the house, thick and heavy. I ran. Straight through the back door, barefoot, into the trees. Branches tore at my arms, roots sent me crashing down, but I didn't stop. I heard shouting behind me. More than one voice. Flashlights cutting through the dark. They didn't chase fast. They didn't need to. They knew where I was, and they were letting me feel it. I don't know how I made it to the road. I just remember stumbling out of the trees and collapsing on the gravel, lungs burning, legs shaking so bad I couldn't stand. A car slowed, then stopped. The driver asked if I needed help, and I couldn't even form a sentence. I just nodded and cried until my throat hurt. The police came. I told them everything. The messages, the landlord, the knocking. They drove back to the property with me, lights flashing, weapons ready. The house was empty, clean. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. The landlord's place was locked up, truck gone. Neighbors said he'd moved out weeks ago. Said the rental had been empty before me. My phone was checked. The messages were gone. No record. No unknown number. Just my word and my shaking hands. I quit the job the next day and left town. I didn't argue when people hinted I'd imagined it. I didn't fight the looks that said stress, lack of sleep, overreaction. I just wanted distance. Silence that felt safe. But even now, silence makes my skin crawl. I still think about that text sometimes. He won't hurt you. I don't know who sent it. I don't know who he really was. All I know is that someone was watching me long before I noticed anything was wrong. Someone decided when I could leave. I learned something in those woods that never really leaves you. Danger doesn't always rush at you. Sometimes it waits, smiles, holds doors open, and asks about your schedule. Sometimes it wears the face of someone you're supposed to trust. I check my locks now, over and over. I don't stay anywhere remote if I can help it. And when something feels off, even if I can't explain it, I listen. Because the scariest part wasn't the knocking or the chase. It was how normal it all felt to them. I don't know why they let me go. Maybe I ran when others didn't. Maybe I wasn't worth the risk. Or maybe they just wanted to see if they could make me disappear and change their minds at the last second. What I do know is this: some places don't need ghosts. They already have people willing to make sure no one ever believes you were there at all. I remember sitting in my truck with the engine off, listening to the rain hit the windshield, trying to decide if I should leave. The road behind me was already swallowed by mud, and the narrow dirt path ahead disappeared straight into the piney woods. My coworker had said this shortcut would save time. He'd laughed when he told me about it, like it was some local secret. At the time, I trusted him. I wish I hadn't. I was doing overnight maintenance work, bouncing between rural sites most people didn't even know existed. That night, the job was simple. Check a broken signal box near an old logging route and report back. No tools needed. No reason to stay long. But the moment I stepped out of the truck, I felt it. That quiet pressure in my chest. Like I'd arrived somewhere I wasn't expected to question. The rain made the woods feel closer, heavier. Water dripped from branches onto my neck, cold and sharp. I kept thinking I heard movement deeper in the trees, but every time I stopped, there was nothing. Just rain. Just darkness. I told myself it was nerves. I'd been tired lately. Long shifts will mess with your head. Then I noticed something that didn't make sense. Another set of tire tracks next to mine. Fresh. Same direction. Same stop point. Whoever it was had parked close, but there was no other vehicle in sight. No engine noise. No lights. It felt wrong, like I'd walked into the middle of something already in progress. I checked my phone. No signal at all. Not even emergency. That's when I realized how quiet my radio was too. Dead air. I thought about my coworker again, how he'd insisted I take this route, how he'd said reception usually drops but comes back. Standing there in the rain, alone at the edge of the woods, I understood that usually didn't mean tonight. I followed the tracks on foot, telling myself I was just being careful, that it made sense to see if someone else was stuck out here. The mud sucked at my boots with every step, slowing me down. After a few yards, the track stopped suddenly, like the vehicle had vanished. No turnaround marks. No sign of anyone walking away. Just wet leaves and the sound of rain tapping against metal somewhere ahead. That's when I saw the signal box. The door was already open, wires hanging out like someone had rushed and left in a hurry. But nothing was damaged. No broken lock. No cut cables. It looked staged, like someone wanted me to come closer and see it. My shoulders tightened as I leaned in, my flashlight beam shaking in my hand. Behind me, the rain sound changed. It took a second to realize why. Someone else was standing under the trees, blocking it. I couldn't see their face, just the shape of a man, still as a fence post. I called out, asked if they needed help. No answer. He didn't move. Didn't even shift his weight. I stepped back slowly. My heel hit something solid. I looked down and felt my stomach drop. A phone. Screen cracked. Still on. The lock screen showed a missed call from my coworker. Same guy who told me to take this road. Same guy who was supposed to be on shift with me but called out sick last minute. The man in the trees finally spoke. He asked if I was lost. His voice was flat, like he was reading from memory. I said I was just doing a job. He nodded, like that explained everything. Then he asked who sent me. When I told him, his mouth twitched, almost like a smile. More movement appeared behind him. 2 more shapes, stepping out just far enough for me to see there were 3 of them now. None of them looked rushed. None of them raised their voices. One of them said I shouldn't have come alone. Another said the rain would cover the noise if something went wrong. I felt my body go cold. Not fear exactly, more like my mind disconnecting from reality. This wasn't random. The open box, the tracks, the dead radio, my coworker's phone at my feet. It all lined up too cleanly. I realized then that the shortcut wasn't about saving time. It was about isolation, about bringing me somewhere no one would hear anything but rain. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. They just stood there, watching like my body had forgotten how to move. The man in front took a slow step toward me. Not threatening, just deliberate. My mind raced, trying to figure out what to say, how to make them leave. Nothing came out. Only the rain hitting my jacket, the mud squelching beneath my boots, and my own heartbeat hammering. He stepped out from behind a tree, soaked through, grinning like it was all a game. The betrayal hit harder than the cold. I'd trusted him. He'd put me here. And now he was part of this, part of whatever they were planning. I wanted to shout, to scream, but the words froze in my throat. The first man reached for my flashlight. I tried to jerk it back, but there were 3 of them now, moving in coordinated steps, cutting off every escape route. They didn't need to force me. They just surrounded me, calm and patient, like predators testing their prey. My hands shook uncontrollably, my mind screaming to make sense of it, to remember anything that could save me. Then my coworker leaned close and whispered something I'll never forget. "We told you it was a shortcut." He chuckled softly, then stepped back, letting the others close in. The box, the tracks, the dead phone, it had all been set up. A trap disguised as routine. I realized then that if they wanted, no one would ever know I'd been here. No one would ever find me. I don't remember exactly how I ran. I just remember mud in my eyes, branches ripping my clothes, and the sound of laughter behind me, soft but confident. Every step felt like it could be my last. Every breath was stolen by the fear that this time, I might not make it out at all. I stumbled onto the main road hours later, drenched, bleeding, shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. A truck slowed and stopped when it saw me. I couldn't form words at first, just pointed and nodded. They called the police, and I finally got to sit somewhere safe, letting the warmth of the cab sink in while I replayed every detail over and over. The police checked the site. Nothing. No footprints beyond mine. No signals of anyone else. The logging road looked deserted, like I'd imagined it. They asked about my coworker. I told them he called out sick. They didn't follow up. He never admitted anything. Never explained why he recommended that shortcut. I quit my job immediately. Driving past the area now makes my hands sweat, and even years later, I can't hear the sound of rain without my chest tightening. I feel watched sometimes, though I know no one is there. I don't trust shortcuts. I don't trust friends who seem too eager to help, and I never go into the woods alone. The worst part wasn't the rain, the mud, or even the dark woods. It was the betrayal. The person I trusted most was the one who put me there, who made sure I was alone. It wasn't luck that I survived. It was running instinctively, nothing more. And even that could have failed. I think about my coworker often. Sometimes I wonder if he still tells the story differently, laughing about how easy it was. And sometimes, I wonder how many others have taken that shortcut and never made it back. I check roads carefully now, always alone, always cautious. But there's a part of me that will never stop remembering, will never stop replaying that night, the faces in the trees, the calm, patient way they surrounded me. The horror wasn't in what they did. It was in how quiet, how normal it all seemed. Some lessons come too late. Some betrayals leave scars that can't be seen. And some shortcuts should never be trusted. I remember the first time I noticed it, the smell. Not like smoke or anything natural, just wrong. It was faint at first, like wet dirt mixed with something metallic. I had been camping near a clearing in the Piney Woods for a weekend getaway, thinking I'd be alone. It was mid-September, the air was cool, damp from a morning drizzle, and the trees stood tall, blocking the sunlight in thick shadows. I had set up my tent near the edge of the clearing, close enough to hear the creek babbling, far enough that no one should find me. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. My phone barely worked, so I told myself it was a chance to disconnect. But by the second night, I started feeling uneasy. Something in the woods shifted differently when I moved. The wind didn't rustle the leaves the same way. Branches snapped in places where I wasn't walking. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just animals. Deer, raccoons, maybe a stray dog. But the smell followed me too, drifting in and out of the tent at night. And every time I left the tent to check the fire, I felt it, eyes. Not far, not hidden. Just enough that I knew someone was standing there, waiting, watching my every move. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was paranoia, that being alone in these woods late at night messes with your head. But when the fire flickered, and I thought I saw a shadow between the trees, I realized the truth. I wasn't alone, and whatever, or whoever, it was didn't belong in the forest. The next morning, I tried to ignore it. I packed some extra firewood and walked along the creek, telling myself a hike would clear my mind. But the footprints started showing up. Not animal tracks, but boots, heavy, deliberate, large. They didn't follow a straight line. They circled my campsite and went back into the trees, like someone was marking territory. By noon, the unease had grown into full-blown dread. Every rustle of leaves made me jump. Every snap of a twig sounded like someone stepping closer. I even started checking behind me every few minutes, and each time, it felt like something was just out of reach, disappearing when I tried to focus. At one point, I went to refill water at the creek. That's when I noticed the tent. The flap was open, though I had zipped it the night before. My things weren't touched, but the zipper had been handled. My sleeping bag was slightly moved. I froze. The smell came again, stronger this time. Sharp. Metallic. Clothes. I wanted to leave, but every step toward the truck felt heavier. Then I found the first note. Small, wet from the rain, written on a scrap of paper I didn't recognize. It said, "We're closer than you think." My hands shook so bad I dropped it in the mud. I wanted to call someone, but there was no signal. The woods swallowed every attempt at communication. I thought about hiking back toward the main road, but the tracks had already formed a maze around my campsite. Every time I tried to leave, it felt like the paths shifted, the woods closing in. I realized then that someone, or more than one person, was making sure I didn't just walk out the way I came in. By nightfall, I was trapped in the clearing. The fire barely burned, flickering shadows across the trees. Every sound was magnified, the wind, the creek, my own breathing. And then I saw it, a figure at the edge of the tree-line. Just standing, watching, calm, unmoving. I whispered, asking if they needed help, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure didn't respond. Then another appeared, and another. 3 in total, spaced apart, so I couldn't run without stepping into one of their sights. They weren't hiding. They didn't need to. Their presence alone made the air heavy, suffocating. I realized the notes, the footprints, the open tent flap. It had all been orchestrated. Someone wanted me scared. Someone wanted me to know I wasn't safe in the woods. And my heart sank when I remembered my friend, the one who had recommended this camping spot. He'd known the owner of this property. He'd told me it was safe, quiet, private. Now I understood the truth. One of them stepped forward, holding a flashlight that cut through the shadows. Not high, not bright, just enough to illuminate my boots. They didn't yell. They didn't need to. Just the calm, deliberate movement made it clear. They had me. I couldn't hide. I couldn't fight. I could only stand there, frozen, feeling every instinct in my body screaming that this was a mistake I couldn't undo. I waited for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes, until I heard the sound of distant voices and tires on gravel. Someone was coming. I didn't understand who, but I took the chance. I ran. Branches tore at my clothes, mud clung to my shoes, and the firelight flickered behind me as shadows lunged forward. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. Eventually, I stumbled onto a logging road, soaked, bleeding from scratches, shaking so bad I could barely dial 911. The officer who came told me there was no one else in the area. No evidence. No prints. The campsite looked untouched except for the fire, which had burned down to embers. I went home immediately, quitting all plans for camping or even being alone in the woods. Sleep didn't come easy for weeks. Every shadow, every crack of a branch made my heart pound. I couldn't stop replaying the calm, silent way they had surrounded me. The way the notes made me realize I was being watched the whole time. I still think about those woods, about the eyes in the shadows, the footprints, the notes left just for me. I don't know if they were ever planning to hurt me, or if scaring me was the point. But either way, I left changed. I learned that danger doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it waits quietly, patient, and lets fear do the work. I can't forgive my friend either. He recommended the spot, knowing who owned the property. I don't know if he meant for anyone to see me, but it doesn't matter. I was alone. I was vulnerable, and someone wanted me to feel it. Now every time I step into the woods, I feel watched. Every note, every mark, every shadow in my memory reminds me that trust is fragile, and even the quietest, most safe places can hide something cruel. Some people can't be predicted. Some places aren't safe, And some mistakes, you only realize too late. I remember the sound of the phone buzzing on the counter. Not a call, just a text. I was alone in the cabin, deep in the Piney Woods, finishing a shift of remote forestry work. The message was simple. We see you. I froze, my fingers hovering over the screen. My heart raced so fast I could feel it in my throat. I didn't know who sent it, or how they knew I was here. The cabin was isolated, a small wooden structure off an unmarked dirt road. No neighbors for miles. No one passing by. The landowner had rented it to me for a week while I conducted a survey on wildlife patterns. I'd double-checked the locks before leaving, thinking I'd be safe. But now, standing there in the dim light of evening, the silence of the woods felt suffocating. Earlier that day, I had noticed small things. Footprints by the side door, a chair slightly moved, a window that I swore I had locked. I told myself I was imagining it, that the woods were playing tricks on my mind. But the text removed all doubt. Someone was here. Watching. Waiting. I tried calling the landowner. No answer. I tried dialing my boss. No signal. Even my radio, which usually worked in these remote parts, was dead. And then I heard it, a faint tap at the window. Just one. I froze. My instincts screamed to run, but I didn't know where. The cabin door led to a porch surrounded by trees, and the only road out was muddy and twisting, likely impossible to traverse quickly in the dark. I sat there, trembling, realizing that for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. And it wasn't random. Someone had been planning this, waiting, watching me, probably for hours before I even arrived. I tried to act normal, like I hadn't seen the message. I checked the cabin, locked every door and window again, and lit a small lamp. But every shadow seemed too dark, every sound too deliberate. The wind rustled leaves, but there were other sounds too, branches snapping too close, like someone was stepping carefully, testing my nerves. I found more signs that told me I wasn't imagining it. My boots, left by the door, had moved. The firewood pile had been rearranged. Even my backpack was slightly off the hook. Whoever it was, they had been inside the cabin, or at least close enough to reach through the windows. And they weren't careless. They left nothing obvious, just little details that made me doubt my own memory. Then came the next text. Don't leave. My stomach dropped. I tried to reply, asking who it was, but the number was blocked. I could hear faint movement outside, something brushing against the walls, soft, cautious. I considered climbing out the back window and running through the woods, but the mud made it impossible, and the darkness swallowed every sense of direction. Hours passed like this. Every tap, every rustle, every whisper of wind made my chest tighten. I kept thinking about the stories I'd heard growing up. People disappearing in these woods, hunters never returning, cabins left empty. I had laughed at them. Now I understood. Not all danger announces itself. Some waits. Some lures you in quietly, carefully, and then makes you realize that escape is only an option if they let you have it. By midnight, I was exhausted, trembling, unable to sleep, constantly scanning the darkened edges of the cabin. And then I heard it again, a deliberate knock, this time on the back door, slow, steady, almost patient. I didn't answer the door. I couldn't. My hands shook too badly to even pick up the baseball bat I kept by the bed. The knocking continued, slow and deliberate, until it stopped, replaced by a faint whisper. I couldn't make out the words, only the tone, calm, patient, like someone confident that no matter what I did, I was trapped. I crept to the window, pressing my face against the glass. A shadow moved across the porch, just a vague shape, but it was enough. My breath caught. Then the text came again. We're inside. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come. The idea of them already being in the cabin, watching me, made every instinct in my body scream to run, even though I had no way out. I grabbed my backpack and tried to slip out the back window, careful not to make a sound. The mud outside swallowed my weight, and I nearly fell. That's when I saw them. Two figures emerging from the treeline, calm, methodical, blocking every direction. My heart felt like it would burst. My coworker's face flashed in my mind, the one who recommended this cabin, who had mentioned the quiet, private spot. He'd smiled innocently then, but I realized now he had known what was possible. They didn't shout. They didn't chase aggressively. They just moved closer, guiding me with their presence, their patience suffocating. I understood, with a sinking certainty, that escape depended entirely on their choice. Every branch I crushed underfoot, every step I took through mud and leaves, felt like a race against something I didn't fully understand. I ran blindly, slipping, falling, my ears ringing with the sound of laughter so soft it was almost soothing. That laughter didn't make me feel safe. It made me realize they had rehearsed this, knew exactly how I'd react, and enjoyed watching me unravel. I didn't stop until I stumbled onto a gravel logging road hours later. Rain had turned the dirt trail into a sticky mess, but I didn't care. I was soaked, bleeding from scratches, shaking uncontrollably. A truck slowed, then stopped, and I barely managed to point, trying to explain between gasps. The driver called the police while I collapsed into the cab, too exhausted to move. When the officers arrived and followed me back to the cabin, it looked untouched. No footprints beyond mine, no signs of entry, nothing to prove anything had happened. My phone showed no texts, no block numbers, nothing at all. The landowner never answered his calls, and the co-worker disappeared from my mind as just a familiar face who had helped me pick the location. No one questioned him. No one checked anything. I left immediately, quitting the assignment, refusing any future work in that area. Sleep didn't come for weeks. Every shadow in my house, every creak at night, made my heart pound. I kept replaying that night, the slow knocks, the whispers, the realization that someone could watch me without leaving a trace, and it stayed with me like a weight pressing against my chest. The scariest part wasn't the knocking, the whispers, or the shadows. It was the quiet, deliberate patience. The realization that someone could orchestrate everything and I'd be powerless to stop it. That's the thing about fear. It doesn't need to attack to control you. I still think about that cabin, the woods, the figures in the rain. I wonder if they ever watched someone else, or if I was just lucky to survive. I don't trust recommendations for quiet or private spots anymore. Even friends can lead you straight into danger without realizing or admitting it. I learned that danger doesn't always scream. Sometimes it waits, patient, methodical, letting you convince yourself you're safe until the moment you're not. The woods don't need ghosts. People do enough damage on their own. And sometimes the hardest thing isn't escaping. They let you leave, but they make sure you'll never forget. I remember the first time I heard the voice. It was faint, almost drowned out by the wind and the rain that had soaked the forest floor. I was driving alone through a narrow logging road in the Piney Woods, late at night, returning from a maintenance call. The headlights barely cut through the fog, and every shadow looked like it was moving just slightly out of rhythm with the trees. The road was supposed to be quiet, empty. My co-worker had laughed when he told me to take it, saying, "It's faster than the highway, trust me." I should have trusted my instincts instead. About 20 minutes in, I saw something ahead, an abandoned truck parked awkwardly on the side of the road. No lights, no driver, just sitting there, silent, almost waiting. I slowed, heart pounding, and that's when I heard it, the voice soft, deliberate, coming from the woods. My name. Clear. Calm. Close enough that I knew whoever it was had been there for a while. I glanced around, tried to rationalize it. Maybe a hunter. Maybe a lost traveler. But the voice knew my name. And then I noticed the tracks in the mud, 2 sets. One mine, and another that matched every turn I made. Whoever was out there had been following me, matching my pace, always just far enough to stay unseen. I thought about turning around, heading back to the highway, but every instinct told me that wasn't safe either. The road twisted, the mud slick, and the trees leaned over like they were closing in. By the time I realized how trapped I was, I understood the truth. Someone wanted me here, and they had no intention of letting me leave on my own terms. I tried to keep moving, focusing on the headlights and the center of the road, but the other set of tracks mirrored mine perfectly, always staying just a few feet off. At one point, I caught a glimpse of movement between the trees, a shadow crossing the road in the corner of my vision. Every time I tried to slow, to get a better look, the shadow vanished. Then the rain picked up, hammering the windshield, reducing visibility to almost nothing. My hands gripped the wheel so tight they ached. I remembered my co-worker's laugh and casual tone, how he had insisted this shortcut would be fine. My stomach churned. He knew something. Of that, I was certain. I passed a bend in the road and almost ran over a log. It wasn't natural. It looked like someone had thrown it there intentionally, just enough to scare me. My heart pounded so fast I thought I might pass out. That's when I heard footsteps. Not on the road, not from another car, but from the forest. Slow, careful, echoing faintly in the fog. They were keeping pace with me, silent enough that it felt like the trees themselves were walking alongside. Then I saw the next truck, parked farther down the road, lights off. And my phone buzzed again. No signal, just a text from an unknown number. "Nice try. You can't outrun us." My chest tightened. Panic set in, but I had to keep driving. My hands shook, my vision blurred, and every instinct screamed that this was no random prank. Someone was orchestrating everything, and I was trapped on their road, in their forest, alone. The next bend in the road brought the unmistakable sound of tires crunching behind me. I glanced in the rearview mirror, nothing visible, only the fog and shadows. But I could feel it. Someone was there, moving in sync with me, patient, deliberate. My heart thumped so loud I thought the other person, or people, might hear it. I tried to speed up, but the mud made the wheels spin. Every attempt to gain distance felt useless. And then I saw them, figures stepping onto the road from the tree line, tall, calm, methodical. One of them waved slowly, almost casually, as if I were expected. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a random encounter. This was planned. Every log in the road, every shadow, every text, it had all been calculated. I thought about my coworker again, the one who recommended this shortcut. The smile he had given me earlier replayed in my mind. He knew. He had to. And I realized with sinking certainty that I had walked straight into something that had been set up long before I even turned onto the road. The figures didn't chase me aggressively. They didn't shout. They just blocked every path forward, stepping slowly, patiently, until I felt completely trapped. My hands shook on the wheel, my chest burned, and my mind raced. I tried to call out, but the words stuck in my throat. The only sound was the rain, the tires spinning, and the faint, soft laugh behind me that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. I made one desperate move, jerking the wheel toward a narrow gap in the trees. Mud flew, branches scraped the sides of the truck, and I hit the brakes just before hitting a ditch. The figures paused, watching, giving me the horrifying clarity that every step, every move I made had been anticipated. They were in control. I was not. I didn't stop driving until I reached a small gas station on a side road far from the forest. My hands were numb from gripping the wheel, my clothes soaked through, and my mind couldn't stop racing. The attendant stared as I stumbled inside, muttering about trucks in the woods, texts, voices. The police came later. They checked the logging road. No vehicles, no footprints, no sign that anyone had been there except my own tracks in the mud, slowly fading in the morning light. My phone had no record of the messages. My coworker didn't answer his calls. Everything that had terrified me vanished into silence. I quit the job the next day. I refused every remote assignment that required traveling alone, even if it meant losing income. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even when I was miles away from the woods. Every shadow, every crackle of trees in the wind, sent my heart racing. I still think about that road, the fog, and the figures in the trees. The thing that haunts me most isn't the chase, the texts, or the shadowy figures. It's the realization that someone, or several someones, had planned it all. And I was nothing more than a mark, chosen, observed, and tested. I can't forgive my coworker for recommending that route. I can't trust anyone in those woods again. And I can't forget the feeling of control slipping from my hands, replaced by theirs, quiet, patient, and absolute. Some dangers don't announce themselves. Some people don't need weapons to terrify you. They just need time, patience, and the ability to manipulate every small detail around you. I got lucky maybe, or maybe they decided I wasn't worth the risk. But every time I drive past that forest, every time I see fog rolling over the trees, I feel it again. The patient, silent presence that could wait forever and knows exactly how to make fear real without touching a soul.